We're going to take you back to the mid-90s and discuss how a scene that started out in a pub, yes, a pub, with a capacity of 150 became a musical phenomenon in 5 short years. Now, South East London may have been its birthplace, but it wasn't long before every city and town in the UK wanted some of it, and got a lot of it. Internationally, Ibiza, New York, Amsterdam, Cape Town, and Cyprus, of course, were just a few of the places the sound was loved. You'll hear from the DJs, the producers, the MCs, the labels, the major players that had the whole of the world standing up and taking note, and taking notes. Pirate Radio, Radio 1, Adulation, The Booze, or Booze, awards, hits, and there were a few of them. UK Garage did something no other underground UK club scene did. It went to the top of the charts and stayed there until, well, I'll let the others explain what happened.
Back in the day, 90s, 91, 92, there's a lot of people that were out partying and Ministry of Sound was begun, and the late night partying started, and really and truthfully after party started at people's flats, and it was at people's flats in people's houses that you'd have maybe 20, 30 people bunched up, regular 20, 30 people, and there were regular DJs that would play at those parties, and we'd party, but the music we played was more underground.
There was nothing happening those days. It was just Ministry of Sound. Ministry of Sound used to shut at 10 o'clock in the morning. You came out of there, you know, you went to a friend's house or you went home. And that was basically it.
You'd had the huge acid house rave scene of 89 and 90. And, you know, maybe that kind of got a bit of a bad press, and you know, maybe with the connections of people who are saying, oh, these are drug parties and stuff, and raves changed from being this illegal rave thing to right now this is a festival brought to you in conjunction with Tango and Nokia and whatever. So there was a space for something to come back up through the underground.
And at first we just went to, I can't remember who it was, but someone decided that they would, you know, knock up a couple of local pubs. Because, you know, we all had money in our pockets, and it was like, you know, you got 150 people here who don't want to go home, they've got money in their pockets, it's like, you know, do you want to take our money or not? We'd all leave Ministry of Sound 10 o'clock in the morning, take record decks and stuff to the pub, play in the pub, and then by the time it came to licensing times, you know, we'll still be there because we've been there since 8 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning, and then they would start selling us alcohol. And that is really how the whole Sunday thing developed, because this is before any of the clubs, this is before any of that stuff happened. It all happened in these pubs.
There was nothing going on Sundays. There was like all these little bars. We never had wine bars in those days, so all these bars, people just go in for a drink in the sun. There was really no music being played. So we did a bar across from Ministry of Sound called Elephant Castle. And in those days, Ministry used to finish at 9 o'clock, and we started the bar at 10. Then you had a night called Relished, which used to happen in Kensington as well. And from there, that was really the birth of the Sunday scene, as they used to call it back then.
We've done places like Oceans on City Road, and then the Fitness Centre, and those are the two early clubs. Very small, I mean, but there was a collective sort of like, it looked like there was a lot of people, about 400 people that used to follow us everywhere.
I think, you know, during that time, I developed what I was really into, and what I was really into was the US garage sound. And some of the US garage was born out of the disco music and was very soulful disco, lots of live instruments and live strings. But there were some producers like Victor Simonelli, who was just cutting stuff up and making it rougher, and the beats were a bit skippier and the basses were heavier, and that sound worked really well for the UK.
Garage for me was, at the time, the way I understood it was like just like a raw house music. It was just, you know, so I was listening to that. got turned on to Masters at Work and they had a slew of remixes in the early 90s that just were just intense for me. Just the cornerstone of me, you know, trying to work on beats. Like the drum programming that Kenny Dope did was, I just studied it and tried to emulate that. Roger S. was one of the top dogs as well, and also MK, Mark Kitchens, was on, you know, and as many people know, that's the biggest influence on my sound, personally.
I just started clocking a few tracks, Masters at Work dubs, MK dubs, Todd Edwards, and people like that. And then that led me to start doing, I mean, that I was hooked from the moment I heard that. In fact, probably the track, if I can nail it down to one track that made me switch my musical genre completely, it would probably be the Masters at Work dub of Kathy Brown, Can't Play Around. That for me was mind-blowing, and I'd never heard anything like it before, and well, I literally said to myself, this is me, this is what I'm gonna do. And that's really where it started for me. That's really why I did the Nice and Right label. I mean, it was to try and, I suppose, emulate the US sound in a way, take influence from it, but kind of put more of a UK kind of grit on it. And I think that's hopefully what we achieved anyway.
There were all these little pockets of this sound developing around London, but the Sunday scene was where it was really sort of instigated, I believe. There were the Arches, and then the Gas started. Now what we did, we started the Gas, it was myself, Norris the Boss, and my good friend Genesis Wayne. We started Friday night at the Gas Club.
So it was like, okay, what are we going to call it? You know, and this scene was quite, although it was quite peaceful, it was still quite a strong scene, you know, because the guys were all quite, you know, they're all known dudes and they're all quite physical and aggressive and stuff, you know. So it's like, okay, let's try and take it away from that aggression and create something that's just going to be really light and fun. And so, Spread Love Project.
We did it for a month, lost the night, and then I started on a Sunday night with my partner at the time, which was Public Demand Records, or Labello Blanco, which is Andy Swallow. And we started this night, which from the first week we did it, it was packed. People came to the Gas Club on a Sunday because the music was so cutting edge, and it was just, you know, we'd speeded it up a bit. The energy on the dance floor, you had office people, you had gangsters, you had TV stars, you had footballers, you had all the doormen from all the other door clubs, and the Ministry doormen, all my mates, everyone used to come down. You were there with the crowd, you know, you could reach out and touch them, you know, and it was like there was no ego there. It was just dancing and passionately into the music, and I was as well. And I was just breezing through. I was just doing it, you know.
For me, that was where it all started. For me, I mean, I know there was a few rivals that come up, but I don't think anything touched the Gas Club at the time.
One day I was playing at Lacey's on a Saturday night. It was me. I was a resident of Alex P. So you can imagine this is kind of how far back this was. Probably '91. And I remember this. I was playing this record. I was thinking, I don't remember it having lyrics on it. And I looked in the corner behind me, in the little dark corner of this club, and Creed's on the mic.
I started off a raver. I was going out to these clubs, and then, like as I said, I had to go abroad for like a year or two, and like I started writing lyrics, and I came back with like a bag full of lyrics. And the thing is, I'm in these clubs and I'm raving and I'm drinking and that. And at the end of the day, all these lyrics are in my head, and I'm listening to the tunes because obviously we're raving. And then like I started kind of spitting in people's ears, not but rapping in their ears, and people started going, yeah man, that's all right, yeah man. Like, so I started gaining a little bit of confidence that my lyrics were okay, even though I wasn't a rapper, I wasn't an MC, I was just someone who I could always write.
We took him to the Gas Club. I remember I had a little bit of differences with my partner, like he didn't want any MCs because it wasn't a common thing to do then, but stuck with it. Every time I came on, Chris was my MC.
Introducing DJ Dominic on the decks. Welcome to Spread Love. Each and every Sunday night at the Gas. We're blasting pads.
It was kind of like a residency that we both had together that kind of It ticked all the boxes.
The minute he says, the whole place, like you've put on the most amazing record, the whole place just go berserk. The time Todd Terry came to the club, a couple of times, he was staying in the UK for, and he came down 3 weeks in a row and just stood there watching. Hermit was playing, and I remember he was playing Soul Fusion, and he had it +8. And I remember Todd Terry going, "Man, it's like speed garage." I remember him saying it and thinking, "Oh yeah, you know," because we didn't have a name for it. It was just it was just deep house as far as I was concerned. And it was just kind of before Public Demand really kicked off as an underground label. It was just that before the days when that was happening. And the first track they put out was J. Ella Ruth, and even that was speeded up a bit when we played it.
I was coming in pitched up, have it a bit more crackling, smack out, crackling, spin back, have it. Yeah. And it's just bring a bit more gritty and a bit more energy to something that I felt needed speed on it.
When Spread Love used to put on their nights, that's the only place I used to kind of hear about this kind of sound. So I went down there a couple of times. I loved it. You know, DJ Hermit playing certain selections that really kind of, I like the feel, because he'd play that kind of house music, which there was a little kind of an edge to it. So I liked that sound, but I went to tweak it around to what I saw.
I used to play in the Gas Club before Dominic Spread Love took over. When Dominic Spread Love took over in there, that was it. It was all over. It was like everybody had somewhere to go at all hours on a Sunday.
Frog and Nightgown was really popular in the beginning. It used to be really early in the morning, and anything went within reason, and it was, again, a family environment where people could go down there, meet up with other people, talk about the night they'd had before, and then move on after that to Happy Days, which was at the Arches.
94, Arches kicked in, and that was a real sort of the uniting of UK, US garage, US garage, because obviously UK garage hasn't really kicked in yet.
And when I made a track called Feel My Love back in 1991, and then from then I kind of found that a lot of British producers over the years started to come out of the woodwork.
At that time, we used to make our tunes like the Americans anyway. We didn't have our own style then. Most of my style was copied from Americans. That's how I started making music. I used to loop a lot of American stuff and just play around with it and make my beats from there.
24 Hour Experience is myself and Simon Furman, producer from Essex. And we used to get together. The reason why we were called 24 Hour Experience is because we just used to get in the studio and fling down an EP in 24 hours. That was the whole purpose of the exercise, really, to try and see if we could do it in 24 hours. And we did. Obviously, that's what we did. And obviously we did the first part one of Essentials, and it was pretty big out there on the scene. So when it came around to doing the part two, there wasn't really a plan for it. It was just more of the same, really. 4 tracks, just get down dirty. As long as the beats were good, the bass line's good, and most importantly, they had some sweet, soulful chords in there. That was really what 24 Hour Experience was about. And Together was just one of those tracks. I think it was maybe the 3rd track we made for the EP during that night. But we had no idea it was going to be as big as it was. We just thought we'd done another good EP. It would sell a couple of thousand units, and great, we can get on with the next one. And again, it kind of all interlinks. 24 Hour Experience, G.O.D. A lot of people thought it was about Todd Terry, Todd the God, and it kind of was. We were sampling some of Todd's tracks and stuff like that, without a doubt. But the G.O.D. actually stood for Guaranteed Overnight Delivery. 24 Hour Experience. It's the same thing again, but everyone kind of said, no, it's the Todd Terry thing. And I was working with other people: Simon Furman, Dave Thackeray, DJ Disciple, Dave Camacho, Phil Asher. There was loads of people coming down through the studio as well. Michael Watford, Colonel Abrams. It was really good times, really good times. But it was just a bit of fun as well, It didn't feel like we were doing anything special at all, which I suppose made it all the more sweeter the way it did turn out.
the British producers started getting on it. People like Baffled, people like Gavin Face Mills, obviously Matt and Carl were starting to do things, and all of a sudden there was a batch of British tunes.
First track we made was a track called Going On, which was just meant to be a dub plate thing for myself. It was built especially for the Frog and Nightgown. Got back in the studio, made a cut called Overview, featuring Colour Girl, probably our biggest track. From that point on, we noticed that the scene was getting bigger, and the sound rapidly changed from a US thing to a UK thing.
Let's just say, when we set up, there was 4 record shops selling garage music, and there was 2 other record labels and 3 radio stations. That was it.
After buying records in Birmingham and you know, looking at labels like Nice and Ripe and, you know, thinking, you know, Nice and Ripe, who are these guys? I'm looking at people like Grant Nelson, you know, producing tracks, which I love. Those kind of underground American style house music. I was like, you know, that's where I want to go now.
And I remember the change from my box going from maybe 95% US over a period of maybe 2 years to like then to 10%, then to 20%, and to 50-50. Then US started slacking off, and so we're talking like 95, 96 when it started becoming a British sound.
The Tuff Jam sound can only be identified as raw, with musical elements, with a club feel. Our first major vocal track was Experience with Jackie Bennett, and when we done that, everybody was on it, kind of that US kind of feel with, you know, the British toughness.
When it comes to the production, I wanted my sound to sound hard, tough, it cuts through, people recognize it immediately.
It had to be different than anybody else. It had to be, when you heard them drums come in, they were like, oh, it's Tuff Jam, isn't it? You know, straight away, you know, you don't want to go, God, who's that? And wait for 32 bars and Tuff Jam. It had to be Tuff Jam.
But I used to actually start to work on the dub while I was doing the vocal mixes. So I'd be sitting there like when we're having maybe a little tea break or something, and I'd just be like knocking up some quick beats while we got the main track on screen that we're working on remixing. And I just kind of put this little loop, this little block just sitting at the end saying, right, you're for later. And that's partly the dub, ready to rock.
So we were just like making stuff and trying them in the clubs, and people were asking for our stuff all the time. So when we eventually gave people our stuff, people, you know, the majors were like, who are these guys? They don't really put out a lot of stuff, like major chart stuff. They're just, you know, big club producers.
We got together, he got up a very basic track, and I started vibing along to it. And the track that, what came out basically was the first track that we ever did together, which was called Tumbling Down.
Tumbling down. Whenever you're ready, I'll be there. Tumbling down.
And Tumbling Down defined the whole garage era from the very early days, and that's one of the most defining tracks. And Carl goes to me, we should do a follow-up. I was like, okay, cool. So we got together, myself, Carl, Matt, and Banana Republic, Gavin, his partner as well. And basically we decided that we were going to write a track all together. And we did, we wrote the track, wrote the song, and it came out as Just Gets Better. Carl came to me again, he's like, you're never going to believe this track's amazing, it's massive. And I was like, look, just, no, whatever, you know what I mean? I just thought he was just chatting and saying stuff. And he said to me, look, you need to come out and, like, you know, see the vibe and see what happens when we drop the song. And as soon as the bass line dropped, everybody went mental. And no word of a lie, 4 times he had to will that and came again with it 4 times. But for me, it was amazing to see the reaction.
One of the first to kind of have an intro.
Right about now, London town. Can't toughen up Brown. Toughen up.
And I started to chop around little bits of vocals, you know,
Whitney Houston. I cut in there a bit of the track from Experience, Tumbling Down, you know, and little chops and pieces, and I thought, that's it. But man, it just caused an amazing situation because people just like recognised it and it became an anthem.
DJ toughen up rap. DJ toughen up.
When the Rosie Gaines tune kind of blew, when we did the remix, that was kind of telling us what was going on. From there on, it kind of exploded. It made the way through and really put the so-called underground garage on the map.
A certain group of people that don't like another group of people for whatever reason.
Pirate radio, for me, was the heartbeat of the UK garage scene. Without it, there's no doubt that the garage scene would not have gone as far and as wide and have been as popular. It was the voice of UK garage. The guys who went and done their shows week in, week out. They went and record shopping to hunt out the new music. So it was a constant. It was almost like being able to sort of check up on the scene.
Freak FM. I look at those guys when it comes to radio as the pioneers of garage music on the airwaves. If Freak FM played your record, if every DJ on Freak played your record, you were gonna sell vinyl.
It was London Underground, which probably came about a year later.
Yeah.
A year later, which
we helped sort of like
get involved in. A lot of our friends were organising that.
We was helping a bit, doing a bit of the lineup because we knew like the owners and that.
Hermit, Spoonie, Greg Stainer.
There was quite a few. Danny Foster, the Scott Bradleys, and the Mikey B, Jason K, Daryl B's, Richie Fingers.
And that's where the Dream Team was formed.
Yeah.
I had a show with Jason K that we used to call the community show because obviously me and Jason K go back from the Top Buzz drum and bass hardcore days prior to the UKG. So I used to listen to Timmy and Spoonie's shows to think, let's see what the boys are going on with. And as it went on the station, we just became friends naturally, organically. So it then turns out, we'd bounce off each other, we like to quote each other, have a laugh as like boys, do you know what I mean, banter. And yeah, it was just great.
I started off with production and sort of brought it to the fold. Obviously, when you can imagine, 3 guys with different talents as well, undiscovered talents, it's nice to then bring them to the table. So for me, it was production, and for Mikey, Mikey's his wit and his DJing skills, and Spoonie obviously his mouth. As you know, he's progressed on to do other things in radio, but when you bring all that to the table, it means that you're now threefold. You can attack all areas of the industry.
In our era, the biggest artists in the scene were getting up after doing their gigs on a Saturday night, and they was getting up at 10 o'clock on a Sunday morning to go and play on the radio, because it was almost like we had a duty to spread the music.
Freak started booking me a lot for parties, and they were putting on parties, and all of a sudden I thought, this thing's going huge, because the parties were chocker, it's like people I didn't know, a lot more people I didn't know, younger faces on the music that we've been playing for a while. So yeah, it's like they played a very big part in pushing it forward.
We are the Little Coliseum crew. Spush for the big people in town.
In London, the scene was growing at a rapid pace at that time. You could actually do near on 20 gigs a week. On a Saturday night, stroke Sunday morning, you could go right through and do sort of 8 gigs, 9 gigs on a Sunday. So, it was a very, very busy time. So there was always work for everybody. Everyone was eating at the time, in the club scene.
The Sunday scene started because they couldn't get access to the club on a Friday, Saturday. So they'd take the Sunday on.
Yeah.
And then, obviously, as it grew and grew, people thought, there's a lot of money here. We've got to give these people the proper nights.
There was no Saturday nights or Fridays. It's like
the club scene didn't really want that on those particular days. So Sunday was the only night that, but you know, if you're working Monday, you're not going to go out and party on the Sunday. So eventually, you know, I spoke to one of my partners, Neil. He was doing some of the Richard Branson's club, like Roof Gardens and all that. So then he said, yeah, I've got a club, Adrenaline Village, which was just down by Battersea over the bridge. So once we got up and running, we just started, got all the DJs in and just started running with it, and that just took off and just went just solid every Saturday with full house, 9 till 6 in the morning. That was 1996. And then we done the New Year's Eve rave, which was the biggest in the garage circuit. And then Time Out jumped on it, and I was in Time Out every week getting plugs. Evening Standard was doing articles, and that just went mental. This whole scene just blew.
Adrenaline Village in Chelsea was one of the, I mean, just get goosebumps driving down there. I mean, that was, one of the events. Camden Palace, Laws of the Underground, events like that. Those times, in those early days, I mean, I was still in the second room, to be honest, upstairs. Used to look down over the balcony, see the likes of your Norrises down there and so forth, you know. So, yeah, it was good times.
Twice as Nice was just beginning to kick off as well. So you had, Spoonie down there, resident down at Twice as Nice, and it became a real influential night.
Saturday nights would be about the Coup Club or down there at the Imperial Gardens, Camberwell. And from all around, they would finish about 5 o'clock, and then we'd head down to Grazing Road, where all the original tracks, UK garage tracks, would be first played, i.e. Master Steps. And it was like our church. It was so personal. It was like everyone come together from all around, from up and down the country. And what I loved about the place personally was the fact that you were able to play whatever you wanted to play, which you wouldn't get in any other club because of this personal link that we had between the clubbers and what we were doing behind the decks.
We did about 4 months on the boat at Adrenaline Village. Then we found Gray's, which was a club that you had to go downstairs to in Holborn. And it was what it was, underground, totally underground. If you didn't know about it, you wouldn't find it. If your face didn't fit, you didn't come in. And it became a way of life rather than just a rave.
One of the main guys at the Grazing Road was Charlie Brown, God rest his soul. He was a guy that was synonymous with Grazing Road. Anyone you spoke to about Grazing Road would relate the connection with Charlie Brown. He had his phrases, he was a popular guy and a friendly guy, and everyone got on with him. Another key player within the Grazing Road phenomenon.
Creed was like the #1 MC out there, but people were like, well, who's this guy? They couldn't see him. And so when we actually got the bigger clubs, we actually put it on stage, put the show on stage, put the DJ on stage, give them the cordless mics, put the MCs on there, the laser show, we dressed the club, we gave it that feel so people saw that they was coming to almost like a concert. But if you come from outside London, you couldn't hear nothing. You couldn't hear nothing. So I said, you know what? So that's why I decided to bring the tape packs. So the live recordings, you tape, master them, and push them to all the shops around the country. And they're all sold out. We sent them to Southend, Birmingham, Cardiff, Manchester, Leeds, Huddersfield. So everyone knew what our music was about.
The legal stations could not ignore what was going on, out there with garage. I mean, we had some major people on Kiss back then, major, and then they chose us, to do the prime slot. So they were looking for someone to represent. Unfortunately, they chose Tough Jam.
You've got an unusual sound, you want to promote it. People like 500 Records, those guys who I really supported because I love the sound that they had.
Todd Edwards as well. We supported Todd. I remember hearing a Todd tune for the first time. Matt played this tune from one of his EPs, his new trend EPs, and I was like, what is this?
I think that, you know, part of it was out of necessity. I didn't have a lot of musical instruments to use, so I relied on samples to make up for what I didn't have musically. And then it just became an art form in itself. You have Save My Life was the original track, Alabama Blues dub from St. Germain that I did that. Also, I did the dub remix of Sounds of One, As I Am. I know that that iRecords, the label that I was on, was in good communication with Carl Brown from Tough Jam and Matt Lamont, and they had kind of discovered my sound.
Because we had the show on Kiss, we started to hammer Todd's stuff and promote his stuff. And even more people obviously got to know any albums that we got. We put all these tracks on there as well.
DJ Camacho had said, he's like, oh, you're big in Italy. And like, so that was like my friends were like, Todd Alitalia, you know, and it was just like a funny thing. And then all of a sudden, the England really became the takeoff point.
I'll tell you someone who really pushed it, and I've got to remember why it's fresh in my head, who really pushed UK Garage, and without him, it wouldn't have happened as well, is Steve Jackson. Steve Jackson on Kiss FM was pushing it like you would not
He used to
believe.
play our dark side underneath
Sneakily,
his shows, didn't he?
he'd be doing interviews, playing it underneath.
Yeah.
He really pushed it.
And he championed things like them to
Tough Jam stuff, our stuff,
yeah,
everyone's grants, any big life.
He was quite brave, and I think him being brave, it sort of brought it to everyone's attention.
We all like came from the same town, all of us.
Yeah,
we was always on the music scene. We was always at that. Them times, we was going to all the garage clubs. We was always out. So we made a lot of connections out there. So we got to know a lot of radio people.
In those days, everyone would use like a 909 drum kit to make a garage tune, because that's what the US was doing. But we decided that we're doing what we like, and it would be using like a like a snare, that really snappy, really heavy bass drum, and like some like nice melodic like bass line, instead of just like the bumpy what everyone else was doing.
Because you hear other people's outfits, music, and then you bounce off of that. You say, yeah, you know what, we've got to get back in the studio. We've got to try and do one better than that. So it helped the scene, all of us, because we all utilised off one another. But our style was more gritty, more underground.
We called ourselves Makeshift, which, you know, it was just bung together. So, you know, as you said, everyone had their own style. Everyone came in with their own qualities. Like Burning may have been like one of the biggest like feedback that made us really like open our eyes and realize, like, hang on, there's more to this than like, you know, having a good time. We can make some money out of it. But above all, it was the love. It was, I mean, that's what the music was about, you know what I mean? We did it for years, so it was the love of it above all, you know?
Tim and Omar did Double 99 Rip Groove. That originally came about on a double pack that we released in '97. That was one of the tracks on the double pack. Completely different to what was happening at that time. We pushed all boundaries, massive bass line. I remember meeting with the major record companies at the time, and they didn't know what garage was until that we released that EP. Till that EP had come out and done its thing. Those guys knew what the sound was. It was the first UK garage record to chart.
The scene was, it was almost at a point where there was some established artists such as Tough Jam and RIP Groove were just coming through as well. Also, on the same level, what the 187 Lockdown guys were doing and their other pseudonym, Gan, they had a track called All Night Long. Those sort of tracks, you know, and Anytime as well. Those guys, you know, were kind of leading the scene, but it also was a time where it felt like it was wide open for anyone to just go in the studio and make this music. And I think It's a London Thing kind of, in a way, just put everything in one place, because this scene was from London. Everyone knew that it was strictly in London, and it was, you know, to have the record, it was like almost like the anthem of the scene. There was graffiti going up on the wall saying It's a London Thing. There was people spraying, you know, on the M4, there's a sign on the motorway coming back from Cardiff or wherever he was at that time, and it said London, 40 miles, and underneath London someone had sprayed Thing. So they've actually got out of their car on the motorway and, you know, gone out of their way to do it. So it was just crazy. There was just a buzz around the whole sort of It's a London Thing track and the movement itself, the garage movement, because I think that was what it was. It was related to the movement, and I think it helped create like this kind of energy for, you know, for the town and for the scene itself. So it had a big part to play.
To be the main man, magic on the deck, part of the dream team, and the Mikey B.
Around those times was when the raves really started becoming ram-packed, and all of the sort of big raves as well, Garage Nation, Sun City, Cosa Nostra, you know, the atmosphere and the quality of music and the way that it was just a show.
One of the guys, Timmy or Mikey, they said to me, if you're a two-step, what's two-step? And they played me a few bits. I was like, well, yeah, this is like house, but with half the kick drums missing out of it. But I was kind of digging it because, you know, I've been making 4/4 records or 4 to the floor records for like the last 5 years, and it's like, yeah, I can feel this.
The Tina Moore jam definitely was the first thing I ever heard with a kind of a broken beat on that kind of flavour, and that's what inspired me to do the Indo track. I remixed Indo, Are You Sleeping, for Azuli Records a few years previously on more of a kind of house thing. And I had the parts laying around the studio. I heard the Tina Moore thing and thought, wow, that sounds pretty cool. I'll have a go at something like that. So I just made a remix for myself. It wasn't going to come out commercially. It was just for myself. And Norris came down the studio and I played it to him, and he flipped out. He said, bruv, you've got to let me cut this on a plate. This is going to smash it. And I was like, nah. And he was like, bruv, trust me. He took it away and the rest is history. That Bump and Flex was pretty much born.
There were people like DEA Project, people like Steve Gurley, Chris Mack. They really did sort of just take this two-step sound on and actually push it forward. And I think a lot of those guys had come from from the drum and bass or maybe hardcore scene. So the breakbeat element was something that they was a bit more accustomed to.
The early Groove Chronicles sound came from Noodles being of, if you like, house descent, and me being of techno and drum and bass descent. I suppose you could call us like the first ones to bring to mix garage with jazz and R&B. So together we formed the name Groove Chronicles, and together we broke a couple of musical boundaries in the garage scene. And then from then it was, Stone Cold and Master Plan and stuff just got bigger and bigger.
It's nice to have different feels. You had MJ Cole was making a sound, Steve Gurley was doing a sound, them two. They all had a different feel.
When the MJ sound come in, it was a little bit more musical. It wasn't the sort of rough and rugged sound that we were coming from. It was like, hold on a minute, where's this sort of kid come from all of a sudden? And it was wicked.
Up until then, it'd been very 4/4. slash Speed Garage, 187 Lockdown, that kind of stuff. And then Dream Team did their My Desire. Great tune, but switched. It switched a lot.
At the time, everyone was labelling the scene Speed Garage, as it were. Speed Garage. Hated that name. And then we all did. So to me, I went back into the studio and said, well, I'll give you Speed Garage. I'll give you a ballad. Two-step ballad. And again, you know, who knows? Didn't know if it was going to work or not. Played it, it worked.
It was a little bit of two-step, but it was mostly four-to-the-floor, basslining type stuff. And just really got into it. And Dorado, the label that I was on, put out my first tune, City Life, and the guy from Dorado went down to release the groove, back as it was back in those days, and he said, Matt and Carl love your tune. I'm like, oh, well, Chuff. He said they're going to play it on Kiss that night, at the end of the week, and sure enough they did. And that was a green light for me. I was just like, right, I'm getting right into this.
We did it our way. Yeah. We're running things versatile.
In 98, it's like I'd done the work with Grant. We'd done the first version of Right Before My Eyes, and we'd done Life Ride, and we'd done the Licorice Flavours EP. And I was professing to Grant at the time that number one, this scene was a scene that was gonna grab hold of the country, if not maybe the world. Do you know what I mean? And number two, that two-step was going to be a predominant part of it, because two-step created a new vibe for me. And once people got on the production of it well, for me it elevated the whole thing to its own sound, separate from US garage, where we come from, and separate from US house, to just what I termed as UK garage.
We was invited to join Galaxy Radio, which didn't transmit in London, so we lost our London transmission, but it meant that now we were playing in Birmingham, Manchester, Cardiff, all the places, all the big cities around the country. So then you started to see an influx of club nights growing in those areas.
When I remember Piper's first track appearing on Top of the Pops, when I remember the same track and the cover with all our faces on it, I looked at that and I was like, raw, whoa, yeah. So that for me was something that this is really going somewhere.
In 1998, August, Pure Silk was the first UK garage-based promotion to hit Iron Napa.
So walk on, keep on walking, walk on, keep on walking, walk on, keep on walking, walk on, yeah.
House music had Ibiza, and Ibiza catered for urban music or garage music very little. So it was very predominantly house-based, where the DJs out there, Paul Oakenfold, Judge Jules, they had that scene locked.
There's money and plenty of it who don't make no demands. All you make.
The first phone call we made was to DJ Spoonie. At the time, Spoonie was very, very popular with the Dream Team. He was available. We called MC Creed to come over. They both came along, and the minute we pulled out the flyer, the hype was crazy. It was like, oh my God, Pure Silk's out here, and it was very fresh, because nothing like this was going on.
Last night, and there were these lads who came up to us and they were like going, oh, do you want to meet the Dream Team? We're like going, yeah, right. And we went straight to them, we're going, it was like really surreal.
Iron Napa became pretty much a base for London, for garage, for urban type events. So the impact was just, it was crazy by way of BBC Radio wanted to get involved, Radio 1, we had MTV, we had all the dance media. This was new, it was fresh, everyone was on it. It was pretty much, I would say, and the icing on the cake for us to launch onto bigger and better things, and I played a big part in that.
It's all about UK garage.
98 really hit the big time. Things like It Ain't Enough that came out in 2000 was 98. Your likes of your Mirrors and obviously your Double 99 and all those big tracks, Enough Is Enough, all the TJ tracks were all big 98.
To me, it's always been an underground scene, and it was always an underground scene. The only time I think I realised that there was going to be some commercial potential in the scene is when the two-step thing happened, because that brought an entirely new crowd of people into it, and that thing just blew. It blew overnight, pretty much.
The Artful Dodger sound, I guess in a nutshell, I don't think we ever sat around a table and said, what sort of record shall we make? We just, both being musicians and both sort of being excited by this new sound coming out of London, we just made what the records we kind of wanted to make, which were musical and song based. And I was always wanting to make the Force the Floor records, and it was Mark saying, come on, there's this new kind of broken beat, edgy two-step. So yeah, we sort of ended up, and I just think a few DJs just grabbed hold of what would have been our B-sides. There was a club in town called Old Oriental, and we were supposed to be DJing that one night, and I can't remember why I wasn't there. I think it clashed with a gig I had in town. And Mark was there, and he just said he had this kid bugging him all night to go on the mic. And Mark just kept saying no. And in the end it was easier to say yes. And it was Craig. Craig jumped on, it was really good. And having no access to vocalists apart from, illegal acapellas, it was a dream really. And he said, I've got this whole album of stuff ready to go lyrically, and he was invited to the studio, and we suddenly had a vocalist for our tracks. I mean, Rewind, Moving Too Fast and Woman Trouble were all finished well before they were released. And I remember going up to see our publisher, Warner Chappell, and we were all thinking, Moving Too Fast is the one. But Mike Salt, our publisher, was like, nah, I think Rewind's a hit. And we were like, wow, it's a good club record, really good club record. We didn't even know what a hit record was. And I still remember laying in bed when our manager phoned up and said, we've got the Midweeks in your number 2. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. But I didn't really know what that meant. And then suddenly you're into pop territory and Top of the Pops, and you've got smash hits wanting to talk to you about. It's just bizarre.
The scene was massive, and everyone was eating off of, everyone in the underground was eating off of that music, and everyone was holding the majors at arm's length at that time, But when we went to Radio 1, the week before, that's when we started to get some real good chart. The chart started bubbling with UK Garage.
When Dream Team got the Radio 1 slot, I mean, that was the turning point, I think, of Garage. And that's when I got more excited and thought, you know what, I might actually have a chance to make a hit, because, we've got someone that represents us on Radio 1. The country was listening to them every Sunday.
It wasn't like, hi, we're on Radio 1, let's shut the door. It was like, anyone can eat, everyone can eat. Everything started to chart.
Then all the comps started to sell. Everything just went into hyperdrive.
UK Garage went intergalactic. Nationally, in every single corner. We were getting bookings in Merthyr Tydfil. Wherever they could, we got there and people were like, well, what the hell are you doing in my hometown? We're bringing it to the masses.
At the height of it, we were turning down 5 or 6 major label remixes a week. Turning down. All from massive artists, from all the big R&B and pop artists. We just didn't have time to do them. I mean, it seems crazy now. I mean, the money that was on the table was just insane.
The scene was absolutely kicking. I mean, you couldn't get in most of the places because they were sold out. And it just went from strength to strength to the point where we had 6 out of the top 10 tracks were all garage.
Posh and Beck's come at twice as nice, yeah? Flipping Wesley Snipes come at twice as nice, Jay-Z come at twice as nice. All them people, they heard about it. Anytime anybody came to England around that time, first of all it was the Gas Club that they were going to. Then afterwards, it became twice as nice at Collie.
what was happening is, because we didn't have vocals, we've never really had great vocalists in the UK. They are out there, but they never get nurtured. So what most producers were doing was nicking R&B vocals. So what Two Step had actually done is it opened our ears, all of us, opened our ears and our imagination to the R&B sound.
We had so many different types of producers. It wasn't just like one sound, say classical music, and it all sounded the same. Especially like when Wookie turned up, who just turned up with this crazy drum and bass meets garage.
At that time, my sound, what I was trying to work on was slowing down drum and bass, speeding up R&B. I came to 128, that was my tempo, and I was working on that sound for about 2-3 years, and then the two-step scene happened to stumble across me. And it came up with my style. That's why it was so different to everybody else's. Where before I was doing R&B, at soul to soul, hip hop and stuff like that, and doing that music at that time, you wasn't really getting that much of a headway because the only R&B artist you had at the time was Lamar, you know. So I had to give that up and try and make something else. At the beginning, I didn't really get why everyone was so hype about Battle. It was just a tune. You know what I mean? It was okay, but. Yeah, Twice as Nice one Sunday, and me and Lane there, and they was playing Battle, and I was looking at Lane saying, look at them. They were going mad.
Every day is like a battle, but we'll overcome. When we get back in the saddle, faith will bring us home.
When he dropped that track, Little Man, and the person who always dropped it was Spoonie. He always dropped it at the end. In the end, at the end. So the night was just about to finish, and then like the lights were coming on, and then he'll drop that track when it first started coming out. Everybody would be like, what the hell is this? Then Wookie started to drop all these other styles, and then you have all these other people start to imitate what Wookie was doing. And it changed the garage scene on the whole. I mean, music has changed anyhow, but it changed it to that degree. And then it took on another level and went other places.
I was riding high at that time, you know what I mean? You know, I was the man. And then 138 Trek came out, and it was changing it. It sped everything up. And to tell the truth, I wasn't too into it. I thought it was too simple. And the jealousy that was getting so much love prompted me to go back in the studio, and it was nothing personal against him. It was just more of how he was changing, or how that track was changing the scene, and was probably pulling it away from me. And my ego and everything was like, no, that's not happening. And then Storm came out, and to tell the truth, when I listen to that track now, it blows me away at times. Actually, there's certain points in it that I'll be like, whoa, that bit was bad.
I think branches just went off in so many different. It was 4/4. It was Wookie's kind of breaks. It was two-step, and it was just like a reggae influence came in with LB.
The track 1999, well, the whole Black Puppet EP, because the other side was equally as played and equally as dirty. I stood in many a club when it was played and listened to Chocolate Boy more or less all night. And then when 99 comes on, you know, guys coming out the corners to bang on the DJ box, you didn't even know they was there. It kind of got the more urban side of the scene excited. Do you know what I'm saying? And that track and tracks to follow that one showed the young'uns that, yo, you can do it.
That's a happy birthday, a one-night stand, tonight at the Gas Club, with Carl Tough Enough Brown, Matt Jam Lamont, Mr. Scribbs, Ramsey and Fenn, Noise the Boss Windross, and the EZ.
around sort of 2000, 2001, you know, the MC became more important than the DJ, and the MCs were the superstars.
The music itself spoke originally rather than the MCs, but then afterwards the MCs came into it, and it was equally as good, but it was a different phase of it.
PSG, G to the OD, SGIFT. Who likes the sound? That's Blakey. Creed MC.
Creed was a big influence, I ain't gonna lie, man. Obviously my brother as well, Gemini from Hardcore, but the other guys were in the scene, but I just thought he was the guy, you know. You went to a rave, Creed burned the place to bits. I was like, I like that. So then I developed my style, looking at the way that was done. The new generation of MC, we went faster, quicker, more bars, a little bit more aggressive, and we kept it UK.
The era of Little Bit of Luck, Oh No, and 21 Seconds. These records here, Genius Crew, Boom Selection, that was the next era of UK garage, and that was like the introduction of the superstar MC.
So let me ask you a question. Who is ready for DJ Luck and MC?
People like MC Neat and Romeo and the So Solid Crew, Genius Crew, all of those guys just instantly, you know, suddenly became overnight superstars, and the scene, yet again, the scene turned on its head.
At that time, people like Creed, Viper, Melody, they was the guys at that time, you know. They were the top guys. That's who everyone, they used to sell tickets at, you know, Coliseum, Sun Cities, Exposure, Liberties, and we just thought, you know, something's about to happen that's fresh. And we felt that from ourselves. Because obviously we knew what we was preparing before we hit the mainstream and hit the underground. So we just thought, if no one's going to support us, we're going to do it ourselves.
Right. I don't know who knows me or who don't know me. My name's Ashley Waters, or Ashley.
We came into the garage scene being heavily influenced by hip-hop, rap artists from the States. We saw that there was a kind of a lack of, I suppose, lyrical content when it came to making garage tunes. So we pretty much rapped over garage beats.
We was talking deep lyric stories about violence on the streets, things that are going on in the world on garage rhythms, which is a very fast tempo. You're talking 138 tempos, whatever tempo it is. So to chat that quick and getting a story at the same time, cool, we must have been talented.
There was garage out at the time, it was kind of more swingy. We come with more like straight 16 beats, kind of more bass orientated.
More dark side.
Yeah, just kind of, I think we weren't realistically trying to make stuff to fit in with everyone else. I think that's why we stood out from other people.
When you hear tunes like They Don't Know, 21 Seconds, Ride With Us, we had the AC Burrell, the Magnum tune. We kind of fit the music around our vocals. Dilemma, which was massive on the underground. So I think at that time we were just trying to bring kind of the darkness into the music along with the stories. But still at the same time we had the hooks within our lyrics that made the girls sing.
It was street music, so you know when the kids in the schools or on the streets saw us on top of the pops, number one or so on top of the pops, it gave them that thing where I can make a tune, I can make a track, you know, be successful. And that's what we brought to the scene. You know, kids coming from estates, you know, from the streets, bang, you're in the charts, number one albums. You know, it's giving people a sense of direction.
It was already Dilemma that, you know, EZ was playing, really raw track. But I think I had the verse vocal grimy track that charted. I started playing in the second room first, while Norris, the boss, was playing Boo in the main room and getting reloads.
I played the thing in Twice as Nice when it was in Holborn, and I'm not joking, it needed 6 rewinds. 6 rewinds, the place went crazy 6 times.
But what I didn't know was the influence that I put in that record was going to start grime.
Boo was like a defining record of the whole thing just going dark.
It was a phenomenon. It was a shock. It was bigger than what I thought it would ever be.
If you're feeling this one, say boom!
Then you had Dynamite on So Solid's records. Then you had Alicia Dixon saying "Feel the Bad Girl" bass on remixes. So then you had Heartless Crew, and you had, you know what I mean? So all these things came afterwards.
Hotel Cardiff crew, Bristol crew, Birmingham crew, London crew. Who's ready to party inside the academy? Where are you there? I can't hear ya, I can't see ya. We got the Babylon.
Marcus's birthday party, Sun City Valentine's Ball. It's absolutely smashing. The Heartless crew on now. They're bad boys. We're doing it again.
Then it started to get a little bit darker and a little bit moodier. And then people, instead of kind of like being more uplifted, they had this kind of like more sinister vibe to them.
Producers started to give me dark music. I'm not responsible for what they give. I just have to join on what they were doing. And when the beats are dark, it gives me that other feeling, you know what I mean? To rap a different way. But the kids that followed us took it the wrong way. They basically just took the full dark. They didn't want anything sing-song.
How that happened was because more MCs came about, and MCs wanted the instrumentation to chat the lyrics over.
Remember, that was before the grime scene, so there was no platform for an up-and-coming MC except the garage scene or the hip-hop scene. The hip-hop scene wasn't really big, the UK hip-hop scene, so it was the garage scene. So all the young MCs were jumping on garage to make garage tune and trying to get in the clubs and rear. So our scene got flooded with it, and like it would have been okay if everybody, like if people were careful about what they said.
We all live in society. We understand that, you know, a lot of the time something that comes along that is very new, current, fresh, breeds a lot of fear inside the community that have already been there.
We changed the industry, and that's why there was a lot of jealousy involved, because a lot of MCs have been in the game longer than us. They've turned old in these raves, and we've just gone like this in 1 year. Hello mate, goodbye, in and out. And we've took it to that level where within 1 year we've gone from underground to doing Top of the Pops Awards, platinum album.
You've got like a night, a rave, a scene that's doing well, you do a regular thing every Saturday night, and then younger generations coming through and maybe taking some of the piece out of your pie. You're not going to be too happy about that, are you?
The So Solid, Heartless Crew sort of era of UK garage was a very important one, just not just musically but socially. I think that what it gave the youth a mouthpiece, and that was why it was so popular. And I think also that was why some of the old guard were so against it, because they instantly realised that they couldn't keep up with that, because they were out of touch with that. It'd been a long time since a lot of those guys had even been on a council estate, let alone to know what was going on a council estate, because they'd spent the last 4 years driving around in big BMWs and living the life. Great. But these kids needed to say what was on their mind, and it was an opportunity for a kid from whatever background to express themselves musically.
We had the So Solid crew on Radio 1 once, and this is when their tune was going. It was, I think that Sunday was when it's gonna go to #1 or whatever, and so we had them in on the show, and it was a chance for them to come in, and they're gonna give them the chance to speak and I remember Mega Man was the main, I think he was the main spokesperson for them, and he was like, yeah, you old boys have to roll over because the new blood is coming through, and you old tired boys, you need to get out of the way, and kind of stuff like that. And I was like, is he having a laugh? Do you know what I mean? So Spoonie was kind of winking at me to kind of like, yeah, just be cool, mate, blah blah blah. And so then that's where the animosity developed from. But it was more, I think, was from that side.
It was kind of like a them and us thing. A them and us, like, the old school and the new school.
There was a point where we were going to do gigs and that, and there'd be signs in the DJ booth saying, don't play casualty, don't play, do you know what I'm saying, to all DJs and stuff like that. So there was a lot of people that felt that it weren't time for us, or that they didn't want garage to go in that sort of direction.
At the time we didn't understand, because we're making music of what we enjoy, but it's not kind of no political, nothing, it's just music, innit? So when people was about trying to ban it, we took offence to that.
Guys holding meetings, you know, telling other DJs, if you play Oxide Neutrino, Soul Solid, you know, those other artists, if you play the tracks at certain nights, then we're not going to get you bookings, you're going to be banned.
What you got to understand, we're like 10 boys, with the exception of one girl, Lisa, coming from a tough area in South London. Like, it's never ever been done. So the following that we had was ridiculous. It was kind of that death row effect, like gangsters on garage.
People, they'll say, yeah, but look, we're talking reality. But, bruv, right, you're talking reality, but the thing is, it's a nightclub. People are coming out to enjoy themselves. You don't have to talk about all the gun road thing and like about you don't need to talk that in a club. Save that stuff for the album if you've got to get it off your chest.
Foundational lot, they wanted to preserve the tradition of it, I think, and the younger audience and the people making it were to take it further.
Where people didn't come together, you know, it opened up the floodgates for a lot of things. Things happened. Basically, everything went out of control.
Garage tunes were peppering the charts, and it was the next thing. And the record labels started getting involved of chucking money at singles and chucking money at artists that weren't the artists. And for me, if you want the honest truth, the record labels got involved with A&Rs that knew nothing about garage.
The Daniel Bedingfield record was a game changer, but not musically. I think it was a game changer in the way that the majors handled the artists. And it really was the time when majors started just flinging ridiculous amounts of money at artists. And this made artists become very unscrupulous. So you had some really underhand stuff going on.
The majors was just pimping everybody, you know what I mean? Offering them money. I got offered loads of money from majors, you know what I mean? I made a bit of money as well. I'm not saying I didn't, you know what I mean? But I won't sell out. I'm not going to sell out like that. But a lot of producers sold out.
I think the message started changing in the music when that started happening, because all of a sudden the record label was looking for messages that were easy to sell rather than the message of garage music. You're going to have a problem. For me, the feeling of garage and garage music and garage raving, if you like, UK garage raving, was all about bumpy, girls, good times, sing-along music, you know. To go from that to dark messages is for me changes it. So all of a sudden you're going to develop a following that is a bit darker.
We attracted every ghetto, and every ghetto wanted to hear Soul Solid. It's just the way it goes. And with that comes girls, and with it comes gangs. And that's just the way it goes. So, you know, you'd be in one corner, there'd be girls having a good time dressed to the nines. Next corner, you got every gang from north, east, south to west. How can we be blamed for that? I can't control who comes into a rave. But if they kick off, it was unfortunate, because, you know, if there was a shooting, it'd be pointed at us. Some nights there were shootings, I was in my bed watching Match of the Day, but I still got blamed for it.
You went to some of these parties, man, you would be lucky to get out alive. And not just London, but up and down the country, it did get moody.
The story goes, Spoonie was in beyond the decks at Twice as Nice when there was the incident with the shooting in the end. Or not in the end, outside the end, and the whole scenario with that. And then one day after this event, I remember apparently Spoonie turned around to Robbie Craig and goes, "You watch, that's the end now, it's done." And Robbie was telling me that from that point onwards, his management called him, said, "Can you get your diary, please?" And he had bookings every weekend, he was earning fortunes, he was playing all over the world, he was playing all over Spain. They cancelled everything. All of the main agencies, Mission Control and stuff, cancelled all the bookings because all the clubs that they were working at were told you can't have anything, you can't have any UK garage people in your club.
In the end, what they done, they banned garage raves from all the clubs. Like in London, definitely you could not get a club. If you told them you were going to put on a garage night, no way.
There wasn't another stage of garage you could bring. So rather just prolong it, I think the majors just went, okay, R&B. R&B's next, isn't it? Let's do R&B. And we were still remixing R&B, but they weren't taking the garage as the main mix anymore. So I would say about 2000 garage had its time. It wasn't to do with anything about, rappers or things like that. It's just lost its flavour.
When the Dream Team went on to Radio 1, it was definitely a changing point for the scene because it gave us a sort of the national exposure. I think that they was in a position of power and they could have helped more by playing the right music. I think that sometimes they supported the wrong music and that kind of was part of the the beginning of the end, because once we had someone in that position, we needed them to stay there.
The last few gigs I went out to around that kind of era, around the 2003 time, was just so moody. It was like walking into a fight arena. People were just standing around like they just wanted to row with someone. Everyone looked moody, everyone was giving it that, and that was it for me. I thought, I just don't want to be associated with this anymore.
It's not that I'm looking to say it's this fault or that fault. I'm just saying, in my look at it, if I analyse it, I'll say, for me, it went somewhere where it wasn't meant to go. Might kill the clubs. Probably kill the clubs. You kill the clubs, you kill the music. Because garage is a club music, no doubt about it. It was a club music.
I take my chances before they pass me by. But there is a light that shines special for you and me. You need to look at the other side. Now let only
like anything else, you can't keep a good thing down. The elements of it, loads of different subgenres sort of stemmed off of it, and new school garage and this one and that one, but nothing can be compared to pure, unadulterated, good UK garage.
UK garage was the birth of grime, obviously, and I know I didn't really like grime, it's not my music, but the artists come.
If it wasn't so solid, would there be a Wiley? If there wasn't a Wiley, would there be a Tinchy? Do you know what I mean? So we got to look at that as think to yourself, everything brings on something else.
I was doing tracks as D&D, but I was working with Danny Harrison and Julian Jonah doing, they were from 187 Lockdown. So lots of influences like Wookie and people like that, but it was just getting darker, and there were people, like the Ghost and LB were making quite different but dark kind of records. And then from that you had people like Benny Hill from Horsepower. He was putting dub samples because he loved reggae and he's got mad collections of reggae, so he's putting dub samples on two-step beats, but he was putting the snare on the wrong beat. He was putting it on the third beat, and it was just like, this is not two-step, and it was like a weird kind of dub sort of step, and that's where that kind of came from. And when things did go very instrumental and very dark, we've always loved songs. Like Benga Scream and myself have always loved songs, so I think that comes from a lot of that garage world as well, and so that's why we were putting vocals on our kind of stuff, So what we're doing definitely wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for the garage stuff that was going on.
You got to bear in mind, before we had any of this, we were listening to flipping E17 and, do you know what I mean, and stuff like that, and Mr. Blobby getting #1 and stuff like that. I think we've changed the game, it's changed the face of music, and it's educated people.
There was another UK garage meeting where everyone sort of sat down around a table. I mean, I'll be honest, not a lot got sorted out, but so much got sorted out at the same time. It was like, it was good to have everyone in the room talking about garage, and I think it just got the whole scene buzzing again. which has led to producers making music again.
You've kind of got a sort of rise of your Disclosures, you've got a sort of Mike Delinquent as well, sort of bringing in the vocal flex. You've always got Sunship, which are still making some really good sort of remixes. So I think at the moment it's very much sort of, it's not as in demand. I think music goes in cycles. You've got kind of more of your dance and house kind of music sort of really taking the main sort of stage. But I think garage is still there. It's kind of, it's got its scene. It's very much, if you're playing out, you can kind of go back from the old to the new, which is good. But I think garage is missing that community that you used to have when you used to go to the record shops and sort of meet the people in the shops that would sort of be feeling this track and that track. And it'd be great to have like more of a community feel. And I'd say a club night would kind of cater for that really. A nice sort of club night would sort of do the wonders. Have maybe a station that catered for all forms of sub-genres of garage would be great.
Everything comes around, and I don't think garage will ever see what we had. Just like drum and bass would never ever see what it had back in the late 80s, early 90s. But it just seems like this garage thing is coming back in a little way.
That's right. You gotta know your roots, That's where it started. House. And that's where it finishes. House. And garage. Hand in hand. Right.
I think one of the saddest things about the legacy of UK garage is what got left. I mean, now when people think about UK garage, they think about the trouble and the violence, but that wasn't UK garage, man. That wasn't what it was about. I mean, that was a bad element that stepped in towards the end of what had been an awfully long run of amazing parties, fantastic people, a real sense of family amongst the producers, the clubbers. I think a lot of people that were out raving in those times they're gonna keep their memories forever. And the UK garage scene will never be replicated, but there will be something new that will come along, and hopefully it will involve some broken beats and some dirty bass lines. We can only hope.
I told you before in conversation that tunes like this would rock the nation. From Let's Get Close to Bugging Me, call it fate or destiny. With a little bit of luck you might forgive me. Try me out, get loose or freak me. Like a whirlwind spin you around and round. This is street love coming from the underground. The summer of love, snow sometimes, and the bass licks you and I interline. Good rhymes for the future celebrate, and life is a ride that we create. Well, we're doing it again, we're moving. UKG steadily improving. Club nights, music for the people. Call this a rebirth or a sequel. There may be banter, there may be hype. Let's fight for the scene and keep it tight. You need old school for the education, and new music is an inspiration. Let's do this thing in unity. Show our love for UKG.